what is a safe project? Okay, what are they doing now, and what constitutes what would need to occur if it were going to be safe? I mean, solid safe, right? If somebody gets killed, I blow up a plant like the Texas refinery, for example, 17 people get killed, $1 billion in damages, right? That's not going to happen anymore on my projects, right? So first of all, I got to understand what's going on, right? Why is it happening now? And then I got to understand, okay, if that's what's happening now, what does it look like if it doesn't happen? Right? See how this relates to everything? If you're going to own something? Okay, now did that executive have to be an expert in safety to be able to do that? He's going to pull that out of his training? Probably not. At least not right now, right? But if I'm going to own it, I got to know what it is, right? Because I'm going to resource, I'm going to pay for whatever it needed, and I'm going to demand of my EPC firms whatever it takes to make this safe, right? So if I don't know what it looks like, how am I going to know what to resource? I want to starve the problems. I want to resource the solutions. If I don't know, I'm shooting in the breeze, aren't I? I'm just spending money. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So before they said they were taking ownership, they just didn't care about safety of the projects, or why did that change so much?
Okay, that's an excellent question. If you would have asked that executive before he decided to take ownership, if he cared whether people got blown up on his project, what would he say? Yeah, of course. What do you think I am? I got kids, I got a wife. Yeah. Of course I care, right? Okay? Now maybe he didn't know how to make a difference. Maybe he thought that, you know what, we're doing everything we can do. Accidents happen. I mean, accidents are accidents, right? Do you see the difference? He's got to say, I got to translate what I care about into something that happens differently. It's just not trusting that everybody's going to do the right things. I got to figure out, how do I get them to understand what the right things are? Is there even right things to do out there that consistently result in what needs to happen? And if so, how do I know? How do I get that to happen consistently and reliably, right? So that's what I've got to translate my caring into action. Increased trustworthiness. Increased measurement of what's happening relative to what should be happening. Does that make sense? Okay? And it's not the other guy's problem anymore. Yeah, well, I'm gonna expect you to do things and you to do things and you to do things, but now, if it doesn't happen, it's my problem. Do you see the difference?
Sounds like there's a lot of separation between execs and projects.
Yeah, there is normally a lot of separation, isn't there?
Not in my experience.
Not in your experience, in terms of what kind of executive? EPC or construction executive or owner's executive? Contractor. Yeah, if it's a smaller firm, oftentimes, I manage projects. Since we got enough work in the company, I go out on a project and manage the project, even though I own the company. Okay? And so you're right, there is a lot of times a big separation. We were doing, $100 million projects, but, that's what, how we were organized. So yeah, it varies a lot in terms of, the separation. But for an oil company and their executives, okay, they got production and all kinds of other stuff, to get them to take ownership of projects, that was different. Okay? That was monumental in the industry. Right? Then they begin to have these root cause analysis and, sessions where they brought in the contractors, they brought in the project management people from the oil company, okay, and they began to ask the difficult questions. Okay, why does that happen, folks? Right? And well, then, you gave some reasons why that happened. Now I want the reasons why that happens. And I want to ask why 5 times. I want to go deep until I get to the reason. And if there's something I can do, like I build it into my spec, or I resource it, or I'm willing to pay for it, you need another consultant, I'm going to get it to happen. I'm not going to waste money, but if there's something I can do with the authority that I have, I'm going to make that happen. And if it's beyond my authority, I'll go get the authority. I'll convince the CEO that I got to have that authority. Does that make sense? Okay? That is a monumental change that occurred in our industry. When they took authority, they could say, you know what? Somebody's going to figure this out. When our response came back, you can't do that. Are you crazy? If you ever got, you think you could get construction to do work as safely as you could do it in a plant? That was our response. Excuse after excuse after excuse. The executive could say, then we're not going to hire you. And when someone figures this out, we're going to hire them. So that the contractors decide, well, okay, maybe we better start thinking about how we can get past our excuses and take this thing seriously. Does that make sense? Okay? So functionally, ownership has to make those kinds of things happen. At whatever it is, whatever level you're at, you got to own the results, the outcome of the process. Unless you own the outcome, you haven't got governance. Okay. So how's a project manager who fails to care or become technically qualified and establish governance systems like an Al Capone? Did Al Capone order people around?
Yeah.
Could he fire people at will? Yeah. Do executives do that? Well, you had an incident on your job site. Dang, somebody's got to be held responsible, right? You're gone. Does that help? Maybe a little bit. Maybe everybody else is shaking in their boots saying, hey, well, maybe I'll get fired too. But if they come to the conclusion that we did everything we could do, it's just a matter of time before it happens, and it happens to me, then what good is that executive response? Any more than Al Capone. You see, it doesn't do the job. We got to start asking why. The output, the ownership of outcome is mine. I got to understand why. And I got to bring enough expertise that I understand why, so I can resource and demand what I want. Right now, clients don't know how to demand productivity. They don't know what it takes to deliver it. If they did, they would demand it, and our industry would deliver it, but they don't know how. You see the difference? There's a role for executives, and they have to fill that role. If they don't, whole industries can become and remain sick. Repeated time and time again in industry after industry. Okay, assurance of caring. I mean, this tough guy, converting your life into my money. That's the attitude many executives take. I'm in this to make the money. I don't know how to make it safe. I don't have time to figure that out. That's the project management's role. They don't own the outcome. As long as I get my quarterly bonus, I'm fine. I don't have to be responsible for safety or for productivity or reducing the cost of these things. Until they own it, that ain't gonna happen. They keep paying the bills with things the way they are. The motivation doesn't exist. Okay, so an assurance of carrying a continued increase in that, an availability and utilization of technical ability, the resources for training, and of course the personal protective equipment, the planning quality, the alignment in the application, the execution, the improvement, the relationships, the information flow, and we talked about the risk-catching net. Those who own it, okay, the executive is going to ask for ownership of his reports, right? I want you to own it too. Okay? Okay, so what does safety mean? I mean, term. You look in Merriam-Webster, it says freedom from harm or danger, the state of being safe, the state of not being dangerous or harmful, a place that is free from harm or danger, a safe place. Okay, you've all been on job sites. You know that if you don't do something to create it, the inherent risks are there to have an unsafe environment, right? So we have to be able to enter into that unsafe environment and create a safe one out of it. Okay, that's not easy to do, depending on what you're involved in doing, right? Okay, so the need in construction is that it's very labor intensive. There's a higher rate of safety related instances than there are in many other, not all, but many other types of industries. There are tight profit margins, a lower inclination to implement safety measures due to the lack of management credibility, a lower resilience, I should say, to withstand consequences. Sometimes I have seen senior executives, owners of the companies, say we have insurance to cover that. Even as they're cutting a hole that has a stand that's 26 feet high and a road going right along the top of it and almost vertical face of earth, and 6 feet away we're building a concrete form. We have insurance to cover that. Wow. See the problem with that? Okay, it is a non-repetitive industry. That is, if you look at the big picture and you say, is this building or this delivery the same as something else we've done? It's almost always unique, isn't it? But if you look a little deeper, sometimes 2 or 3 layers deeper, you see that most of what we do, we have done before. Most of the work processes that we go through are extremely repetitive, whether it's finishing concrete, forming a wall, whatever it is. It's very, very repetitive. Okay, not all of it. There's most projects, there'll be something new that at least you haven't done before. But that doesn't mean nobody's done it before. Okay, almost never will you come up with a project where nobody's ever done it before. That's possible. Those are fun, right? Okay, so the challenge of safety and its implementation is that we have to get it so that every task, every time is safe. And again, very easy to write in a PowerPoint presentation, isn't it? Relative to getting that to happen on the site. Okay, we introduced this. Want to add a little more meat to it. This is a continuous process control chart, typical of any 1,000 different kinds of processes that are controlled within industry, okay? Where we have a startup, we have a steady state, we have a run-out condition, and we're measuring something. And we have to be within control, right? Well, everything we do, if you're going to control it, you have to have something that you measure. If you're not measuring, you are not controlling. Whatever that element is, if you're not measuring it, it's not under control. You can bet on it. Not under control. I hope it will be done well. Okay? Now, if you're going to measure something, you have to have control limits. You have to be able to say, okay, I'm going to measure it. So what do I do with that measurement? Well, that's a nice number. Yeah, we got it. Sure enough. I don't know what to do with the number. Then I'm just spending money to collect the number, aren't I? Okay? So I've got to predetermine for what things I'm going to control, I'm going to measure, and what are the limits. Where if this is beyond this or under this, I mean, if it's under that, if I'm doing it faster, cheaper, you know, I might want to collect a lesson learned about it so I can repeat that the next time, right? If it's over, at what level of overage do I kick in something different? I say it's out of control, okay? Because it's over this stipulated value. Now what happens? You have to have thought about that. You have to say, I'm going to do this. Okay? Maybe we huddle up. Maybe we bring the general foreman, the foreman in, and we say, okay, this is not happening now. You told us it isn't happening. Remember, that's our sensing device, right? It's the foreman. He becomes our transparency, our means of control. We've defined well the scope of the work that he's doing. He's committed to it. And now he's coming back and saying, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to be more than 2 hours over time. Okay? So why would we want to do something about that? Is there usually more than one task going on at the same time? Yeah. This is a really small project, right? And are those subsequent tasks going to be dependent on this one? Most of the time, right? So if we can't control things, make and keep commitments, and get things to happen consistently, reliably, then we got to go back and rearrange how we do the other things, right? We get the plan in place and we can make and keep commitments, our life becomes a whole lot easier, doesn't it? We don't have to keep changing everything, putting out fires all the time, right? So the first thing we got to look at is, okay, if it's going to be over, what do we do to fix that? You need another person? You need some more equipment? Why did it go wrong? Okay? In fact, it would be really nice if the people, the other task leads, the other foremen could see that something was going wrong with their an adjacent process. Something that they could maybe say, hey, you know what, I'm in a run-out stage. Whoops. Okay, so I'm in the run-out stage of my project, my task, and I don't need as many people as I've got right now. I could take one of those and I could give them to Joe so he could be successful and get done on time. Okay? If you can make things that transparent, you can enable people to begin to balance the resources between them. Let the general foreman know, I got a solution for Joe. But that means that he's got to know what Joe's task is like, what, it's, how he's doing relative to his commitment. Okay, so that transparency has to be broader and made relevant because we understand, what each other is doing. Does that make sense? So these are the kinds of things that we do in the startup mode. These are the kinds of things that we have to control in the steady state. And these are the kinds of things we have to control in the run-out. And it doesn't matter what process it is. most of those things are going to be involved. And we gotta get after it to be able to put it under control. Okay, well, I hope you have a great vacation. And we'll see you on Monday next.
Oh, Gary, I stepped on it. Oh yeah, I already broke mine. That thing was dangling. We like got these. I don't think they were supposed to give these out, but they did. Oh, I sticked it back up. They had a table. They looked good. No. I guess we're going to. They didn't know I would lose my damn mind. It's 3-6. If he gives us more than 2 fumbles, I'm leaving. And then I moved on.
I can't believe you asked for an apple giver.
Why?
For Christmas, I don't want an apple core.
Do you know who I am though? Are you leaving now? You went home?
I have classes.
Oh my god.
I had some friends over Friday, we went out Saturday, that was lit. Yesterday, chill, I didn't leave until like 3:30 last Friday.